January 1991. On the outskirts of Baghdad, a radar room hums. An operator watches a clean scope, clear night, routine signals. Then, a building in the distance erupts without warning. He never saw a plane, no blip, no shadow. By then, a new aircraft was already in the fight, striking targets while radar stayed quiet, not jammed, not hacked, shaped so the waves did not come back. On his screen, the sky was empty. This is the thesis of stealth, not a vanish-on-command trick, but shaping in systems that starve sensors of a clean echo. It trades spectacle for discipline, geometry, materials, and quiet radios, effective, elegant, and a little unsettling. To understand stealth, you first have to know what radar actually does. Radar sends out a pulse. The pulse travels at the speed of light. If it hits something, a plane, a missile, even a flock of geese, energy bounces back. The receiver listens for that echo. From the timing and the shift, the operator learns range and motion. It sounds simple. For decades, it was the backbone of air defense around the world. Conventional fighters are, to radar, mirrors. Flat panels, open intakes, pylons, and external stores send energy straight back. In the 1970s, Skunk Works posed a different question. Not how to jam radar, but how to make the return minimal in the first place. The math came from a Soviet physicist, Pyotr Ufimtsev. In 1962, he showed, quietly, rigorously, how an object's shape governs the radar energy it reflects, its radar cross-section. Officials considered the work too theoretical to matter, and allowed an English translation. That quiet decision became one of the more consequential moments of the Cold War. A Lockheed engineer named Dennis Overholser read Ufimtsev's work and saw a path forward. Use the math to shape an airplane so that almost no radar energy comes back to the antenna. Not a smooth, curved shape, which you might expect. The answer was facets. Flat panels, precisely angled so incoming radar scatters away from the receiver, off to the sides, up, anywhere but back. The result looked like nothing that had flown before. Sharp edges, diamond-like angles, a geometry that seemed to violate common sense about aerodynamics. In fact, it did. The F-117 Nighthawk, which is what this aircraft eventually became, was so aerodynamically unstable that no pilot could fly it without computers making thousands of tiny corrections every second. Test pilots nicknamed it a flying-edged weapon, emphasis on the falling part. But it worked. Its radar cross-section was estimated to be about the size of a small bird, in some measurements, a golf ball. A full-sized combat aircraft, and radar saw approximately nothing. Back to that January night in 1991. Desert Storm opened at night. F-117s crossed the border singly, lights out, quiet radios, on pre-planned routes. Baghdad's defenses were dense, overlapping search and fire control radars, SA-2s, SA-3s, and guns around key sites. Planners expected losses. The F-117s went first to open corridors. No escorts, minimal emissions. Each jet briefed one or two aim points, command nodes, comm hubs, air defense centers, using laser-guided bombs from altitude. Over 42 nights, they flew 1,071 sorties, timing arrivals precisely and striking fixed targets with guided weapons. None were hit. One pilot later recalled Baghdad as a dark grid below, tracer fire stitching slow arcs across the sky. Surface-to-air missiles rose in pale spirals from the suburbs, searching, chasing noise and guesses, hammering at nothing, at ghosts, at echoes that never resolved into a target. And the aircraft that did get shot down were conventional, the ones radar could see. In the Gulf War, stealth moved from theory to practice. F-117s penetrated defended airspace, struck command nodes, and returned. Defenses fired, but late. Radar tracks were inconsistent. Net result, missions completed with minimal losses. Now, shape helps, but it isn't invisibility. That's the part the movies gloss over. Stealth is a system, geometry, coatings, edge alignment, antenna shaping, engine masking, and disciplined emissions, working together. The F-117 began the stealth era with facets. The B-2 Spirit, the flying wing that followed, advanced the idea quietly and in every direction. First, materials. Its skin uses radar-absorbing composites that soak up incoming energy and bleed it off as trace heat, instead of sending a clean echo back. Layer by layer, seams and edges are treated so they don't light up on sensors. The exact recipe remains classified, decades on. Second, engine signature. Spinning compressor blades light up on radar. Stealth jets bury the inlets and use S-shaped ducts so the blades stay hidden and channel the flow to scatter returns. Third, heat, hot exhaust glows in infrared, mix cool air with the jet plume, and vent it across wide, shallow exits on top of the wing. The signature shrinks in cameras below. Fourth, radio emissions. If you shout, you're found. Use tight beams, brief bursts, and low probability of intercept waveforms. More whisper than broadcast. Strip away all 4 layers, almost nothing. But here's the thing about stealth, it isn't absolute. In 1999, during NATO's air campaign over Yugoslavia, Serbian air defenses brought down an F-117 at night. It was the first, and so far only, combat loss of a stealth aircraft. The pilot survived, the wreckage was recovered and closely examined. The battery commander, Colonel Zoltan Dani, later described the method. He avoided high-frequency tracking radars and used an older VHF set around 125 MHz, where faceted shapes are less effective. The Nighthawk wasn't invisible, just harder to track, so cues, timing, and discipline mattered. He limited radar to brief bursts to avoid anti-radiation missiles, used observers to anticipate routes that had become predictable, and waited for a narrow engagement window. He flicked the radar on, just seconds, a faint track, a firing solution, launch. The pilot ejected and was rescued. The wreckage, largely intact, was collected and analyzed. Parts reportedly went to China. Stealth doesn't make you invisible, it shifts the probabilities. That's what Dani showed and what engineers quietly designed for. Lower the radar return, shorten exposure, control emissions. Each step trims the chance you're seen or tracked. The aim is simple. By the time you're noticed, the window to react is closed. Not perfect, just favorable. Think of the F-35 and the B-21 Raider as the next step in stealth, quiet, incremental, and shaped by lessons rather than hype. Their focus is broader now, low observability across the spectrum, reducing radar, infrared, acoustic, and even visual cues at the same time. The B-21, entering service in limited numbers, refines the formula. Internal bays, blended edges, tight seams, and coatings managed meticulously to keep returns small. The faster evolution isn't in aircraft at all, it's in the sensors designed to detect them. Several militaries, including China and Russia, have expanded low-frequency radar networks and over-the-horizon arrays. These longer wavelengths rarely give a clean track, but they can cue other sensors and widen the search volume. Passive and multi-static systems go further. They use civilian broadcasts, FM, television, cellular, and measure reflections at multiple receivers. Because they emit nothing, they're hard to target. Fused inside integrated air defense centers, they raise detection odds without revealing themselves. The next era of stealth isn't vanishing, it's blending into a sea of signals, satellites, cell towers, cameras, so you register as background, not target. It poses a quiet question: what does invisibility mean now? Stealth lives in the gap between what exists and what can be sensed. The F-117 was always there, a 50,000-pound shape threading the dark, but to the systems hunting it, there was nothing. That Iraqi radar operator in 1991 didn't fail at his job. His equipment worked exactly as designed. The rules had simply shifted, and no one had told him yet.
Thanks for watching.
If you'd like more on the B-2, 5th-gen fighters, or passive radar, suggest the next topic.